The gaming industry is no different from the rest of the world when it comes to following trends. In fact, it's been a prominent part of the industry since the beginning. From the early days of platformers and 2D fighters to today where we have live service games and battle royales running the scene, it's safe to say gaming has seen a lot of trends, and today I want to cover the bottom of the barrel worst trends the gaming industry has ever seen. And real quick, before I start the list, I want to give a brief idea of what I mean by trend because it is a pretty loose word, like with its definition. For this video, a trend is going to be an idea that gets copied to an extreme amount in a short window of time, like preferably within 5 years, but it doesn't have to be within 5 years. This includes everything from game mechanics to market tactics. Anyways, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the list. The first one I want to talk about is maybe my least favorite or second least favorite on this list, and that's online passes. So online passes were a short-lived trend back in the 7th generation gaming about, where you'd have a code that came with your game or you'd have to buy separately to play online in a video game. And no, I'm not talking about Xbox Live. I'm talking about individual games had their own passes you had to pay like $10 for if you didn't already have it in the game. So if you were playing on Xbox, you'd have to pay for Xbox Live and an online pass. And if you bought a used copy of a game, you'd have to pay extra $10. This tactic was to prevent piracy and used game sales from stores like GameStop. But what it really did was just isolate a whole group of people who maybe couldn't afford a brand new game all the time, or maybe wanted to share one with friends, Maybe those people exist. You can't just access half the game because you don't have an online pass. EA did this with a lot of their games like Battlefield, the EA Sports games, which is absolutely just ridiculous because they would sell these games at full price and then lock half of it behind a pass. It's safe to say this died really fast because people saw how stupid the idea was. If you think games are greedy now with their battle pass and stuff, can you imagine online passes still being a thing? It's safe to say no one liked this, and it's good that it's gone. The second trend I'd like to discuss is the brown and gray era of video games. Now, when I say the brown and gray era of gaming, what I mean is the 7th generation of consoles trend where they had every game with like a layer of just brown or gray or yellow over it. Some of you guys probably know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. Every game had like this weird layer of brown, gray, yellow. It eventually became blue over it. Now, because technology was so limited at the time, they could only do so much to make graphics look realistic. So that was done to kind of add on to the realism and add some emotion to the video game. Initially, audiences responded to this very positively because it was a big contrast to the last generation, where everything was a lot more colorful. But when every single game does it and doesn't do it exactly great, it eventually becomes a punchline. I get Gears of War doing it, but does Bomberman really need the same treatment? What was also a very common trend with this was the bloom effect, which is very obnoxious, and I'm glad that's kind of toned down a bit over the years. Overall, I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing in certain cases. I think it just has to depend on the game, because every game can't do this. It has to be very specific which games do it. Now, the third trend I want to talk about is one that plagues gaming today, and it is the live service game. To put them into perspective, imagine paying a subscription service to play a game that already sucks, but you get some cool little skins so you can play a game that sucks and look cool, I guess. Imagine paying $20 a month for Netflix and the only show you can watch is Big Mouth, but if you pay every month, you get a new character. It's like, dude, I'm still watching Big Mouth even if they have a new character in it. I don't even care if your game's free. I'm not paying anything to play a empty battle royale game where you walk around an empty map for 20 minutes and then get sniped from 100 miles away. Oh, and on top of all of that, you also get the fact that they always close within a year, so none of your money even mattered to spend anyways. See, Fortnite did this correctly because they actually added interesting stuff to their game and actually keep it interesting. Maybe they add characters people care about. The biggest shame of all of this is that this replaced unlocking skins through natural progression in a game. Just from playing it, you earn it. Now you have to pay for it. It's so sad to see. Now, the next one I want to talk about is one that's very familiar to me and was also on the 7th generation consoles. They had a pretty bad run with some of this stuff, didn't they? Now, what I'm talking about is QuickTime events, and QuickTime events are pretty self-explanatory. You have to spam a button or press one to trigger some action to happen. The reason I think these are so bad is because it replaces real gameplay with just lazy sections that no one enjoys playing. When you're fighting a boss in a game, do you want to just spam X as fast as possible and start hurting your fingers so you can beat it, or would you rather actually fight it like you would want to do in a video game? It is really crazy because this was in so many video games and still is for some reason, some ungodly reason. It still is a thing in video games to have this. This is a very boring, uninteresting way to make your video game. I don't know what the actual goal of a QuickTime event is, because they're not usually challenging. They're just a boring nuisance at worst. But this trend seems to be like a cockroach. It just won't fully go away. It's had its head chopped off. It's got one leg, but it's still crawling and pestering you over and over. I don't know how it's still here, but please, just let this go away. No one likes this. Now, my next one I want to talk about has to be actually the worst. I know I said online passes were the worst earlier, but this one absolutely has to be the worst. And that is releasing games unfinished at launch. This is the most ridiculous, greedy, just undefendable thing in gaming right now. When you have AAA developers with good reputations like CD Projekt Red releasing Cyberpunk unfinished after 11 years, it's why? You have all this time to work on it. Just take a little longer. It's not like people are expecting the game to come out anytime soon. Why are you dropping unfinished? If you're going to take that long, at least make it finished, you know? Don't forget Battlefield 2042. That was a disaster on its own right. Don't forget, No Man's Sky? That one was a disaster. It somehow turned around, but that was a very, very bad launch. Oh, and how could I forget Fallout 76? Probably the biggest disaster I've ever seen in a game launch. And it's day one patches are also just mind-blowing to me. It's you can release a patch on day one, but you can't just take that extra time to finish the game already. Why are you ruining your guys' reputation for a little extra money? Does this even make you more money? I feel it would just make people scared to buy your games afterwards, right? Because it would be why would I buy this now when I can just buy it later when it's actually finished and it's cheaper? You know? I just don't understand it. Maybe it's pushing for holiday releases, but even then, it just blows my mind that that's a thing. And for some reason, this trend does not seem to be losing steam because the Star Wars Battlefront remaster launched horrible, and then they patched up everything, tried to make it better. But still, that's so just disrespectful to people who spend $70 now. $70, right? Not $60 anymore, $70 on a game. They expect it to be finished. That is the bare minimum, I feel like. And they're stooping below the bare minimum. Now, the next one isn't as bad as the last one, very obviously, but the child mascot horror games. Five Nights at Freddy's spawned a ton of these, Baldi's Basics and Poppy's Playtime are probably the biggest examples, but there are a ton of these, and they are very repetitive and just they're not unique anymore. It's not interesting idea anymore. And this was following the Slender Man trend before that, where every game copied Slender Man. So horror gaming went through just a horrible run the past 10 years about. But I think the biggest annoyance with this is that there is a lot of potential for horror games now because of how much technology is advanced. We could have some crazy stuff, but I feel the focus is too much on these really crappy, I guess it just appeals to kids, which, I mean, that's where the money is, isn't it? But I don't think this trend will last too long. It's a bad one, but I don't think it'll last too long. I'm not really worried about it. And it's not harmful necessarily. It just feels like a waste of potential. The next one I want to talk about is one that just really, really sucks. And it's the tailing missions and escort missions. I'm putting them together because they're similar enough. So let me break down an escort mission for you real quick. So an escort mission is where you have to guide someone and protect them from danger while they walk as slow as the laws of physics allow, or maybe they'll just walk right in the perfect speed where sprinting is too fast and walking is too slow to follow them. So you have to do this weird back and forth where you sprint a second, walk a second, wait, sprint a second, walk a second. It's just awkward and annoying. And then these guys will run right into the gunfire that you're supposed to be protecting them from, and it just makes these so frustrating. And then as soon as they die, you have to redo all of this, by the way. This is not a one-off thing. You will have to redo this. And it is so just obnoxious and unnecessary. Now, tailing missions are the complete opposite, where instead of being frustrating, they are so unbelievably boring and long, and it's just like the perfect way to kill any interest I have in a game. Like, imagine following someone for like 15 minutes while you can't be spotted by them, or you have to redo it, and then you have to like maybe listen to a conversation they're having, which you don't care about at this point because you're so bored that you just want to like turn off the game. Or maybe you just have to follow them long enough to see like where they're going, which is just an unbelievably lazy way to go about that. Assassin's Creed, I'm talking right to you at this moment. There is no way you actually put this in like all of your games and thought this was a good idea. When I play your game, I want to kill people in the coolest way possible. I don't want to spend half the game walking behind a group of people acting like I care about the story in this game at this point. Because no, I don't. I've lost interest. 15 hours ago when I started this mission, I might have cared. But like, you've lost me. I don't care, dude. Just please, let me at least kill them at the end of the mission. Don't make me watch them walk through a door and then I'm just like, oh, that's where they must be at. You know, that's stupid. My last one is like, it's not a controversial opinion, what I'm going to have here. I'm not going to go too deep into it because we all know about this, but loot boxes and microtransactions, like, we know these small purchases and full price games are just ridiculous and arguably encourage gambling for kids in games that are targeted for them. But like, we've all heard about this a million times. I'm not going to go and explain it to you. But yes, I do fully agree that these are very just nasty and greedy and just don't have a place in gaming. Now that will be the end of this video. I appreciate you watching it all the way through. And my next video might be a little longer, you know? I'm cooking up some good ideas. But anyways, that's all I got for today. See ya.